This video is sponsored by Premium Sound, one of the UK's premier dealers located in Kensington, London, with an online store carrying a comprehensive inventory to cater for a variety of needs. For more details, click the link in the description. I reckon in the last 25 years, the 770 is the only mission speaker to cause a bit of a stir amongst the audiophile press. It's a Peter Como design, but heavily based on the 1978 classic developed by Mission's founder Farhad Azima. Personally, for me at least, it's nice to see Mission speakers once again capturing people's interest, because 35 years ago when I was getting into hi-fi, Mission was the UK brand that myself and many of my peers looked towards if we were looking for affordable stand mount speakers. However, if you go back to the early days of Mission's lineage, they did actually produce some electronics, including a 778 integrated amplifier. It was a predecessor to the Cyrus 1 amplifier that was highly regarded in its day, launching Mission's then sister electronics brand. Cyrus is a separate company these days, and Mission has been under IAG's ownership since 1999. An amplifier with the 778 model number is back, but this time with an X suffix. It's not based on the original design, but it's closely related to IAG's Quad Vena 2 and Leek Stereo 130, both which are more expensive. So, could the Mission 778X be the bargain in IAG's portfolio? The Mission 778X retails for £549 in the UK. A silver finish is available as well as the traditional matte black. The compact form factor is not dissimilar to Cyrus products of today, but really pays homage to Mission's ancestry. It's going to appeal to people who can't or don't want to accommodate a full rack width unit. Dimensions are 236 by 98 by 381 mm or 9.3 by 3.9 by 15 inches. The unit weighs 6.3 kilograms, which is 13.9 pounds. I like a dial to gain easy access to inputs rather than having to scroll through menus via toggle switches. There are 8 inputs including Bluetooth, USB, 2 optical, a coaxial and 3 analog inputs, one of which accesses the built-in moving magnet phono stage. A bank of LEDs lights up, each one going from dim to high brightness as you incrementally increase the volume. It's a nice touch, but also a feature of the current Cyrus 1. The front panel houses a 6.35mm jack for headphones, and the unit comes with a remote control. A minor gripe: I'd have preferred buttons to direct access inputs. For a compact unit, connections are well spaced out. Analog inputs on the left with one set of pre-outs to connect to an external power amplifier or powered subwoofers. Coaxial and optical digital outputs are centrally located, and below the speaker terminals of standard quality are a bank of digital inputs. Let me start unconventionally with the power amplifier modules. To save space and a little cost, IAG's design team, led by Jan Etner, have developed chip-based power amplifier modules as opposed to discrete amplifier modules as used in the Audiolab range. In this application, the ST Microelectronics TDA 7294 power modules are capable of producing 45 watts per channel into 8 ohms and 65 watts per channel into 4 ohms. That should be sufficient to drive most price-appropriate speakers. But the performance of these chip-based power amplifiers is either liberated or strangled by the quality of the accompanying power supply. IAG have done well here with a 200 VA toroidal transformer and 2 power supply filter caps, each rated at 15,000 microfarads. It's not the class-leading 60,000 microfarads offered by the Audiolab 6000A, but 30,000 is still above average in this market segment and should help to keep bass under control when quick injections of current are required. Tucked away is a phono stage for moving coil cartridges with RIAA equalization provided by a JFET based circuit. There's also a dedicated headphone circuit as opposed to just switching the output from the speakers. The DAC conversion is undertaken by an ESS Sabre 9018 Q2M chip, a device that the IAG team have a lot of experience in squeezing the performance out of, having used it in award-winning Audiolab products in the past. Here the designers evolved to deploy their proprietary digital filtering rather than the stock filters that ESS offer. According to IAG, the op-amps have been selected to improve upon the hard and slightly bright sound that the generic filter can impart. The overall architecture is not as impressive as the excellent Audiolab 6000A, but this is a much more compact unit and it's almost identical to the £699 Quad Vena 2. The Mission 778 is just another reminder of how good hi-fi's got in the sub £1,000 category. You get a clean, fairly neutral sounding amplifier with a very good built-in DAC, and a couple of sources, reliable sources, have told me that the built-in phono stage isn't too shabby either. It's £100 more expensive than my Iota VX SA3 that retails in the UK for £449. But using the analog inputs, both amplifiers exhibit very similar levels of fidelity. The main difference is in the bass. The SA3 is fuller through the lower registers, imparts a toe tapping quality that the 778 lacks, but the Mission amplifier is cleaner sounding, although it is a little bit more drier and analytical in its presentation. It's when you switch to the digital inputs that the extra £100 outlay suddenly starts to make a lot more sense. With the SA3, I can imagine a conversation at Iota where they said, "We've built a really good amplifier and we should really include a DAC." So they added a basic Burr Brown DAC with SPDIF inputs to tick the box. It's okay, but it's pretty cloudy sounding. Spend £200–300 on an external DAC and you'll get something quite a bit better. That isn't the case with the 778X. The internal ESS Sabre DAC is ideally suited to the task. You'll need to fork out close to the price of this amplifier to get an off-board DAC that's significantly better. Like my Chord Mojo 1, which added some welcome scale to the soundstage and body to the mid-range, the current Mojo 2 will set you back £395. But I can't see many people bothering with external DACs unless they're planning amplifier upgrades further down the line. I'm getting a strange feeling of deja vu. The slightly cleaner and drier presentation of the Mission 778X in comparison to my Iota VX SA3 reminds me of another IAG amplifier that I reviewed early on in my reviewer's journey. For £649, the Audiolab 6000A shares similar sonic characteristics. It gives you a bit more power and discreet rather than chip-based power amplifier modules. It's been ages since the 6000A was sent back, so I won't make any detailed comparisons here. Thankfully, I don't have to rely on audio memory because I have my Iota VX SA3 as a common point of reference, and I can conclude that the Mission 778X is close to the Audiolab 6000A in terms of presentation, but where the Audiolab amplifier gives up nothing in terms of scale and authority to the Iota, that isn't quite the case with the Mission amplifier. It's a little politer and smaller in its delivery. If you really want greater soundstage with improved instrument separation, then I still haven't heard anything to match the Cambridge Audio AXA35 for the price. It also has a lovely, warm, rich sonic presentation. It's £200 cheaper than the 778X, but doesn't come with an external DAC. By the time you've added an external DAC of sufficient quality to do the amplifier justice, you will have exceeded the price of the Mission 778X. The Rega IO that I recently reviewed also doesn't have a DAC, but it's an exceptional amplifier with exquisite timing and the most resolving mid-range of any amplifier I've heard in this market segment. However, vocals sit a little bit more forward than the other amplifiers I've discussed here, and the soundstage isn't as wide as the AXA35. The Cambridge Audio AXA35 and the Rega IO are also fussier about speaker choices than the Mission 778X, which brings me nicely on to the next section. With a total of 8 digital and analog inputs, the Mission 778 is a comprehensively equipped little amp. The only thing I think some people may grumble about is the lack of a HDMI eARC input to connect to a TV, so that the device powers up and adjusts volume via the TV remote control. I think its omission is reasonable at the price, but I would like to see it included, even if it means pushing the price up close to the entry Audiolab product. The 6000A doesn't have HDMI eARC, and its inclusion on the Mission 778X would help to demark Mission Electronics as convenience feature-rich products against their more purist Audiolab stablemates. The 778X is flexible when it comes to speaker pairings as well. The Q Acoustics 5020s need amps with robust power supplies to keep the bass under control. Where the Cambridge Audio AXA35 and the Rega IO struggled, the Mission 778X had no problem. That's a nice pairing. The 5020s have a fullness in the bass and the mid-range that balances out the cooler nature of the 778X beautifully, As far as amplifier speaker combinations go, for around £1,000, it's one of the best that I've heard. The extra detail and bass extension that the Monitor Audio Silver 100s have over the 5020s didn't serve them well on this occasion. The sound when paired with the 778X was just too lean for my liking. I'd avoid any speakers that can be a little bit thin in the mid-range and bright on top, so along with Monitor Audio, Klipsch, B&W, Focal and perhaps even Kef would be off my menu. The Amphion Argon 1s can also be accused of being a little light in their harmonic reproduction, but I wanted to see how the 778X scaled up with these £1,500 stand mounts. No, they didn't work. I'd stick with speakers on the warm side of the spectrum to get a better tonal equilibrium. The DALI Mini SEs have enough body and warmth to flesh things out, but the 778X demonstrated some limitations to scale up with these revealing mini monitors. I'd suggest stand mount speakers below £1,000. You may want to spend a little bit more on compact floor standers if you have a larger room, but I don't see the 778X powering massive speakers in very large rooms regardless of their sensitivity. Of all the speakers out there, there's three that I'd personally put on my shortlist, and that would be something from the DALI Opticon range, the Dynaudio Emmet range and the more affordable Wharfedale Heritage speakers. IG have taken much of the DNA that makes Audiolab amplifiers so popular and placed it in a smaller package, making the Mission 778X equally at home on a sideboard, desk or in a hi-fi rack. There's a nice level of detail, very good control and a surprising amount of power for a compact unit. It may not have the expansive soundstage and the harmonic richness of the Cambridge Audio XA35 or the musical insight of the Rega IO for that matter, but neither of those two amplifiers come with built-in DACS. The one inside the 778X is very good, and I have it on good authority that the phono stage isn't bad either. Then factor in that the 778X will drive trickier speakers than the Cambridge and the Rega, and the overall package here is very compelling. The Mission 778X gets a highly recommended from this channel. I can see IG positioning Mission Electronics as their entry brand, Audiolab as their bread and butter audiophile brand, and Quad as their higher end brand. But how would you like to see these brands evolve, or other brands that you may have interest in? What kind of products would you like to see them bring out? That's my question for today. Please share that in the comment section. I'm sure you know what to do by now. If you want to support me here and what I do, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification. Check me out on Patreon. There's a couple of tiers you can access there if you think I can help you on your audiophile journey. Also check out the ABA Club on Patreon, which has some great ways to interact with me and fellow Patreons. But for today, for now, British Audiophile, signing off.